Hey guys, I'm just going to go over some of this old document that I've found. I think I've gone over some of it before, but this is by the Department of Defense, United States of America Defense Intelligence Agency. It's in 1976. Let's see. So it says biological effects of electromagnetic radiation, radio waves, and microwaves, Eurasian communist countries. And this is prepared by the U.S. Army Medical Intelligence and Information Agency and Surgeon General. Authors Mr. Ronald Adams and Dr. R.A. Williams, and it's the biological effects of electromagnetic radiation, radio waves, and microwaves. So let's see, this was dated March 1974. So I'm just going to read you some quick parts of this. The preface is, the purpose of this review is to provide information necessary to assess human vulnerability. Now here's the table of contents. Again, there's the March 1976. Sorry if in the background I have a dog snoring. Hopefully that doesn't come through on this video. But anyhow, here's all the body parts that are affected: blood, cardiovascular system, cells, central nervous system, digestive system, glands, metabolism, reproduction, visual systems, internal sound perception. So I'm going to quickly scan over this. Now, one thing that really caught my eye here was, so in 1958, I guess Russia stated that if the more advanced nations of the West are strict in the enforcement of stringent exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effects on industrial output and military functions. This is the Eurasian communist countries could, on the other hand, give lip service to strict standards but allow their military to operate without restriction and thereby gain the advantage in electronic warfare techniques and the development of antipersonnel applications. So basically, by allowing like lighter restrictions, not so many restrictions, you can develop your antipersonnel applications for electronic warfare. Antipersonnel. So you go look at antipersonnel real quick, define it, English dictionary. So antipersonnel, designed to inflict death or bodily injury rather than material destruction. Inflict death or bodily injury rather than material destruction. We've all heard about the silent quiet weapons for silent wars, or silent weapons for quiet wars, right? So apparently, electronic warfare techniques can be increased with the less enforcements that we have. Less enforcement. I thought this one was interesting. Sounds and possibly even words which appear to be originating intracranially, God, they're obviously doing it to me, intracranially, can be induced by signal modulation at very low average power densities. Sound, so that's basically the voice to skull, the V2K technique, voice to skull technology. Basically, people hear words that they're being put in their heads by frequencies. So, animal experiments reported in the open literature have demonstrated the use of low-level microwave signals to produce death by heart seizures or by neurological pathologies resulting from breaching of the blood-brain barrier. So this down on page 1 actually. It says, therefore, very short waves are absorbed primarily by the skin, while long wavelengths penetrate much deeper depths, or much greater depths. This is section 2 here. We're just looking at blood. So this says, oh gosh, sorry about that. One study involved, let me try to get this clear. One study involved the observation of several thousand persons working in microwave irradiated workshops, as well as animal experiments in human subjects. 3 kinds of damage were found: lymphocytosis and monocytosis. This is your immune system, you guys. Granulocytopenia, monocytosis, and eosinophilia. I don't know what that is. Frequently accompanied by absolute lymphocytosis, moderate neutrophilia. So this states the degree of changes in the blood could be correlated with the exposure and/or duration of working period. This basically mentions the cardiovascular system. Many of the variations noted on the cardiovascular system result from central nervous system effects. Okay, so comparison of a group of engineers and administrative officials who were exposed to microwaves for a period of years as an unexposed control group revealed a significantly higher incidence of coronary disease, hypertension, and disturbances of the lipid metabolism among the exposed individuals. Hereditary disposition to heart disease was approximately the same in both groups, but overt disorders developed much more frequently in the previous exposed group. It was concluded that microwaves may act in a non-specific factor which, under certain conditions, interferes with adaptation to unfavorable influence. Exposure may therefore promote an earlier onset of cardiovascular disease in susceptible individuals. So personnel exposed to microwave radiation below thermal levels experience more neurological, cardiovascular, and hemodynamic disturbances than do their unexposed counterparts. Some of the cardiac and circulatory effects attributed to exposure, including bradycardia, hypertension, and changes in EKG indices, sinus arrhythmia, all this other stuff. Let's see, diminished amplitude of EKG deflections, etc. So central nervous system, this is the one that interests me. Okay, so this says subjects exposed to microwave radiation exhibited a variety of neurasthenic disorders against a background of angiodystonia, that's abnormal changes in tonicity of the blood vessels. The most common subjective complaints were headache, fatigue, perspiring, dizziness, menstrual disorders, irritability, agitation, tension, drowsiness, sleeplessness, depression, anxiety, forgetfulness, and lack of concentration. So this, and I don't know why they don't have this yellow highlighted, because this to me is interesting, but long-term experiments conducted on rabbits demonstrated that irradiation with intermittent or continuous low-intensity microwave fields elicits qualitatively and quantitatively different changes in the EEG. That's your brain waves. So pay attention to this. It has also been observed that long-term exposure of humans to microwave radiation results in extremely flattened EEG patterns. Extremely flattened. You think that's what they're talking about when they say flatten the curve, you guys? Flatten the curve, EEG patterns, flatten the EEG patterns. Flatten the curve, flatten EEG patterns. Okay, so I'm just curious. So I go to look on my gematria, look at him. We don't know who that is, but flatten the curve. I was curious because they keep using that. They keep using that terminology, right? We always hear that, flatten the curve. So flatten the curve, Jewish gematria is 1373. They have different, so Jewish, English, and simple gematria. All these, this word flatten the curve has numerical, and it's paired with other meanings. So let's go take a look at that. So flatten the curve, there's your 1773. Look at that. Wuhan Corona. Wuhan. I was just curious also about EEG pattern, what that number would reveal. So, oh, look at that, 66611. Ooh. That's weird too, that the word flatten the curve. Flatten the curve. So 444, gematria affects muse. Beware of pyramids. But that's, let's see, flatten the curve. So 180. Okay, sorry we're back, but flatten EEG patterns. Anyone have problems with your memory lately? So metabolism says electromagnetic radiation exposure has been found to produce disturbances in carbohydrate, energy, and nitrogen metabolism in the brain, liver, and muscles. It appears that under electromagnetic exposure, macroergic compounds become deficient due to disjunction of the oxidative phosphorylation. Sorry, I'm scooting in. Sorry. Processes and, what does that say? Let's see, the oxidative, where am I? Phosphorylation processes and deranged metabolism of carbohydrates. Anyone getting fatter on this lockdown? With respect to nitrogen metabolism, radiation causes an intensification of the ammonia formation processes in the absence of correspondingly more vigorous processes for its elimination. Anyone's urine starting to smell like ammonia or different than the normal you're normally used to smelling? Okay, so the study does go on. It does talk about reproduction. It does affect reproduction. Basically, it fits right into their depopulation program, I guess, or agenda that they've got going on right now. So I'm going to skip to something else now. This talks about the visual systems also, and it basically concludes too that cataracts, pronounced congenital, let's see, the cataracts were formed. So it says the Soviets will continue to investigate the nature of internal sound, because we're talking about the sound here, internal sound perception. Their research will include studies on perceptual distortion and other psychological effects. The results of these investigations could have military applications if the Soviets develop methods for disrupting or disturbing human behavior. And remember what they said up above? Remember they said, if the more advanced nations of the West are strict in the enforcement of stringent exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effects on industrial output and military functions. So unfavorable effects on industrial output and military functions. That means if we don't let them use their frequencies as high as they want, then the industrial and the military will be affected because they can't have their little silent weapons. We're going to look at Brenden Carr really quick. Brenden Thomas Carr is an American lawyer, currently serves as a commissioner. Sorry, I have notifications blank. Okay. Serves as a commissioner of the Federal Communications Commission. So he previously served as an aide. We don't care about that. So Carr also worked as a telecommunications attorney at Wiley Rein. So again, we're looking at Brenden Carr, FCC.gov, about their leadership. So Brenden Carr was nominated to serve as a commissioner of the FCC by Donald J. Trump, and he was confirmed unanimously by the United States Senate in 2017. So Carr worked for Wiley Rein. Now he's an FCC commissioner. So this is the law office that Carr came from. It's one of the largest law firms in Washington, D.C. So they do work for the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Defense, and they are also a lobbyist for AT&T. So regarding lobbying in the United States, deals with special interest, hire well-connected professional advocates, often lawyers, to argue for specific legislation in decision-making bodies such as the United States Congress. Oh, the people and the journalists describe it as a legal form of bribery and extortion. So in my search, it's lobbying for AT&T services by Wiley Rein, where Carr came from. And I'm just looking at the projects.propublica.org, represent lobbying 300-983-990. And so the client is AT&T, is represented by Wiley Rein. Here's the lobbying firm. So it's interesting how the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security CARES Act is included here, including monitoring and reviewing for communications related issues, spectrum issues, net neutrality, broadband, general issues, telecommunications, communications, broadcasting, spending, over $3 million, almost $4 million. Agencies lobbied since 2007, U.S. Senate, Federal Communications Commission. So AT&T has lobbied for the FCC, and their lawyers were Wiley Rein, and the prominent firm alumni is Brenden Carr, current FCC Communications Commissioner, appointed by Donald J. Trump. And what's interesting is, what's this? Hang on a second, sorry about that. The seal of the United States Federal Communications Commission, an upside down V. You got an eagle carrying some lightning bolts or electricity. And it looks like you got some cell towers there. So anyhow, this law firm happens to have a lot of people. Wow. Counsel to the president. Here's Fred Fielding as a commissioner in the 9/11 Commission. Thomas Griffith. Got some circuit judges, chief legal counsel, Supreme Court, federal election commissions. You got George Bush. So this company, the practices, major practice groups include telecom, election law, government ethics. Oh, they should probably do their homework on that one. Wow. So I guess this has been going on for a while, because it says history. Wiley opened its doors with 39 attorneys in 1983. Johnson & Rein, the firm, then known as Wiley Rein, says, sorry about the jerkiness with this thing, but Richard Wiley, former chairman of the Federal Communications Commissioner, another former FCC. Wow, looks like this electric company, December 2014. Wiley required McBee Strategic Consulting, known as Signal Group. Okay, so it's just strange. So in December 2014, Wiley acquired McBee Strategic Consulting, known as Signal Group. So top Washington firm rebrands as Signal Group. This is in 2016. They're rebranding themselves. Signal Group. Of course, it's October 13th. So Washington, October 13th. McBee Strategic Consulting, top government relations and strategic communications firm today announced it has rebranded as Signal Group to better reflect the evolution of the company. Wow. The announcement of the Signal name is the culmination of nearly 2 years of growth or lobbying, including the company's acquisitions of Wiley Rein, which created the only firm in Washington, D.C. to integrate legal and regulatory expertise with government relations, strategic communications, public affairs, and digital media for those around the globe. Let's see, today's rebrand to Signal reflects just the latest step in the execution of a multi-year strategic plan. Execution. Don't forget that word, you guys. So anyhow, okay, so I'm cutting to this one letter dated 2013 by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they here in this letter, and I'll link it in the description, but they're asking for more studies done as radiation standards to reassess what's considered safe for pregnant women, whatever. So they also want to know about to be more open about what the FCC states as being safe. So the FCC has noted that it does not provide consumers with sufficient information about the RF exposure profile of individual phones to allow consumers to make informed purchasing decisions. And this was written Thomas McInerney, whatever. So just remember this letter asking for help and a little bit more clarification and some studies about the safety of electromagnetic radiation. And in this letter, more recently, December 2018, Congress of the United States, they wrote to Honorable Brenden Carr, the FCC Communication, remember the one that worked for Wiley Rein's telecom group? Remember that? Carr, now the FCC guy. So they say to him, addressing Carr, that regarding a meeting that they'd had in Sioux Falls, that they wanted more clarification on the health ramifications of 5G and small cell deployment. Also, so Carr, speaking on behalf of the Federal Communications Commission, that's the FCC, they state, you, Carr, explained federal law actually says that state and local governments can't take radio frequency concerns into account given how much works have gone into this issue at the federal level. Both at the FCC and other expert health agencies in Washington, they stay very much up to speed on these issues and have reached the determination that these are safe. So this letter basically is asking, you state that they've determined that these frequencies are safe. So let's see, how did you assess that? Where are the studies for this? Now this letter was written by Richard Blumenthal and Anna Eshoo. They're both members of, of Congress, and Blumenthal is a United States Senator, and they were asking for, show us the studies regarding the FCC guidelines and, the studies that basically say that these are safe, this is safe technology. So he gave him the deadline of December 17th, 2018. We look forward to hearing from you on this important matter. We respectfully request a response by December 17th, 2018. So let's go see if we can find any kind of response from the FCC on the safety of 5G technology. Okay, so I found the Federal Communications. Now this is dated, let's see, first report and order, further notice, proposed rulemaking, adopted March 27th. So this is 2013, released 2013. So I think they're going to, oops. Okay, now this states introduction periodic review. Shoot. Sorry, this call came in. Introduction periodic review of the government's rules and regulations to ensure they have kept pace with current knowledge and changing needs in an important characteristic of good government. And we here will advance the process of providing a comprehensive review and modification where appropriate. I think it's appropriate that they update their requirements for the 5G to a safety level, not to their military weaponized level, but to the safety for the people. Here they state order. In the order, we resolve several issues regarding compliance with our regulations for conducting environmental reviews under NEPA as they relate to the guidelines for human exposure. So they relate to the guidelines for human exposure to RF electromagnetic fields. So they should have said to exposure to keep the people healthy, but I'm going to leave this note in here because I'm kind of running out of time here for the space on my computer. But so they state here, we also elaborate on mitigation procedures to ensure compliance with our limits, including labeling and other requirements for occupational exposure, classification, clarification, and compliance responsibility at multiple transmitter sites. Okay, transmitter sites. Let's see, so, okay, this one kind of cracks me up. With the further notice, we make proposals by which we seek to streamline and harmonize many procedures to achieve equal treatment. So equal treatment to RF emitting sources. So don't feel like that's equal. What kind of treatment? That's a global. So they're going to spread it out globally so we all equally get irradiated. Wow, we all get our fair dose. On page 4, section 4, whatever, just to. Additionally, we seek to allow the computation of SAR for evaluation using any valid method to encourage technological development and greater competition in the computational software marketplace. That's their goal. Their goal is not to for health for people. I'm just going to read this real quick because I'm running out of time. So since 1996, the International Commission of Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection has developed a recommendation supported by the World Health Organization. And the IEEE, there's 3 E's. The IEEE, oh my gosh, has revised its recommendations several times, while the NCRP has continued to support its recommendation as we use it in our current rules. And in the inquiry, we ask whether our exposure limits remain appropriate given the differences in the various recommendations that we have developed, and recognizing additional progress in research subsequent to adoption of our existing exposure limits. I wonder what their goals are, you guys. It's number 6. Since the Commission is not a health and safety agency, we defer to other organizations and agencies with respect to interpreting the biological research necessary to determine what levels are safe. So why are we turning to the FCC to see which levels are safe? As such, the Commission invites health and safety agencies and the public to comment on the propriety of our general present limits and whether additional